Good morning. My name is Jessie Wong, and I'm here with the SheEO team, and I'll be your MC for the day. On behalf of SheEO and our partner, Enterprise Toronto, I'm absolutely thrilled to be welcoming you to the Toronto Women's Entrepreneurship Forum of 2017. We had over 500 women registered for this event, and it feels truly amazing to be standing before you at City Hall here today, looking out at a room full of hundreds of the city's brightest female entrepreneurs. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you will leave today with resources, information, and lessons to help grow your business, but also, and perhaps more importantly, that you will leave here with connections and a community of hundreds of radically generous women to support you on your entrepreneurial journeys. Before we get started with the programming today, I have a couple of housekeeping announcements. Currently, we are situated in council chambers, and it's important to note that no food or drink is allowed in this room. The event is being photographed and videotaped, and there's also a live stream of the event available on Enterprise Toronto's Facebook page. Somebody actually just found this phone in this washroom over here, so if you want to come by at break, I'll have it up here for you. You must be checked in at registration through that hall over there to get a meal ticket for lunch. So if you haven't yet had a chance to do so, please do that at the break. We encourage everyone in this room to download the Google Docs app on your phone, unless you brought your laptop, as we will be using the Google Docs app for the Practicing Radical Generosity session later this morning, with more information to come. The hashtag for the event is hashtag TWEF17. So we encourage you to tweet and to post on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll engage you in dialogue. Thank you so much today to Enterprise Toronto's event sponsors, without whom we wouldn't be here today. Thank you to TD, Yellow Pages, Microsoft, True Shield, and Vistaprint. Please join me in thanking our sponsors. And from one of our event sponsors, TD Bank, today we have Sharon Sellers, Senior Manager of Small Business Banking, who will come up and kick off the day with some welcoming remarks. Please join me in welcoming Sharon to the stage.
Thank you, Jessie. Good morning. I'm Sharon Sellers, and I'm the Senior Manager of TD Small Business Banking in the GTR region. I'm delighted to be here to support women who are venturing into or already in the world of entrepreneurship. I'm proud to work for a company that supports gender diversity at the leadership level and values and understands female voices and what they can bring to the table. Women-led entrepreneurship adds diversity into a system that greatly needs it. And in this room alone, we have representation from the beauty, consumer goods, finance, food, and health industries. We have women who are exploring the idea of entrepreneurship, and the vast majority of you have already decided to make that leap. We know that entrepreneurs add tremendous value to communities by creating job opportunities, contributing to the growth and prosperity of our economy. And at TD, we're committed to work alongside our customers to help them meet their goals, fulfill their dreams, and be successful. We know that businesses need a bank that is truly in their corner, and we appreciate the opportunity to play a part in being a trusted advisor. So keep an eye out for our TD small business representatives, who will be available throughout the day to answer any questions, and they're easily recognizable by the green TD shield on their lapels. At the bank, we know the importance of getting funding and getting your business up and running. And over 40% of you in the room are already at the revenue generating phase. That's not my phone. And another 29% of you are in the pre-revenue phase. It's important to find out how to get funded. So let's get started. It's my honor to bring to the stage Vicki Saunders, founder of SheEO, to introduce the Funding Your Venture panelists. Welcome, Vicki.
So I just want to let Jessie off the hook. That was not her phone. That was whoever left their phone in the bathroom. That was that one. Okay, hi. I have the goosebumps. There's so many. There's never been this many women in this room. Ever. Right? So, yeah. Let's make sure we have a lot of photography, please, City of Toronto people. Okay, before we get started, I would like everyone to please stand up. Put down your stuff. So, we have a thing called a SheEO hug. And it's heart to heart. So you know how you normally do the other side? It's heart to heart. You have to tell people this in advance, otherwise you end up kissing, okay? So here's what we want to do. We want to charge the room with heart, because this is what's missing in business. And so you may not know the person beside you. If you're deeply uncomfortable with hugging, just stand back, I guess. But you're here, so maybe suspend your disbelief about the fact that you're not really comfortable and try it anyway. Hug the person beside you and maybe a couple of others and welcome them, heart to heart. All right, thank you. Whew, there we go. All right, please have a seat. Thank you. I felt them all. Okay, so here, next up, if you have space beside you, can you put up your hand? So there are a lot of people standing, and it's a long day. So if you have any more space, could you snuggle over a bit and invite someone else in? Please. I think there's a couple more up here. There's one in the middle. But please, if you're standing at the back and you're not comfy, please come and hang. And I guess we'll just start filling up the aisles. That's what is happening in the world today. There's so many women who want to get their dreams out there. Okay, thank you for that. Did that feel weird? Or is that good? Good, okay, cool. So this is a little bit of a snapshot into the spirit for the day. The spirit of radical generosity. And this is what we think is really missing in the world. How would you act differently if you thought you were surrounded by radically generous women? Just think about that for a sec. Would you dream differently? Would you ask for help more? And then take it to the next level, which is, how would you act differently if you're radically generous to yourself? You know, all those voices in your head about whatever those things are. I have a few of them. Not good enough, not trying hard enough, not taking enough better care of myself. If you're radically generous with yourself, how would that change the game for you too? So I'd like you to kind of keep that lens for the day. This is a safe space today to ask for help, to get what you need, to step into that scary part when your heart's racing and you want to ask for help but you're not sure. This is a place to do it. That's what the sort of container that we want to create for today. So imagine if you're surrounded by radically generous women, because you are. And we're going to have a really cool practice of that later today. Okay. How many people here have no idea what SheEO is? Okay. So just quickly, SheEO is a new model to support and fund female entrepreneurs. This started in Canada 2 years ago, and we did a pilot in 2015. 500 women from across the country contributed $1,000 each. Not getting their money back, no tax receipt, just radically generously contributed $1,000 through our website, created a $500,000 pool of capital, and then they all voted to loan money, 0% interest, to 5 female entrepreneurs. Oh my God, right? So how many activators are here today? Could you please stand up if you were one of those women who contributed $1,000? Thank you. And so the next year, in 2016, another 500 women did the same thing. So now we have 1,000 women across the country and 10 ventures, and we're just about to start this round again. And we'll talk a little bit more about this today, but this is a game-changing model that we are going to export around the world. And our goal is to have 1 million women and $1 billion fund as soon as possible. We've had 100 different regions. We've had 100 different regions apply around the world. We're doing 4 countries this year: Canada, the US, Netherlands, and New Zealand. And there's a lineup of others. So this is a new model, and for us, underneath all of it, it's how can we create a space for women to support women, to create the kinds of businesses that we want to create in the world. Okay. You can find people from the SheEO team later and ask others. There weren't a lot of people who didn't know what SheEO is, so feel free to share that model with each other. All right, we're going to jump right in now. We have 3 unbelievable panelists coming up. Ilana, Jessica, and Michelle, can you come up, please? So we're going to talk about funding your venture, and each one of these female entrepreneurs has done that a different way, has used a variety of different funding approaches, and I'm going to ask them some questions, but we're going to do Q&A at the end. Reminder again, when you hear something cool, tweet it out, post it on social. It's really, really important that we amplify the voices of women in the world, and so that's a practice we're going to do today too. All right. So Ilana, why don't we start with you? Who are you? And tell us a little bit about your business.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for bringing this together. My venture was one of the first years of recipients of the SheEO award, and so I've gotten to know Vicki and SheEO, and it's incredible to see this many women in this room. I'm a toy designer and social entrepreneur. So I started a socially motivated toy company just over 4 years ago that I've been bootstrapping ever since. We design toys that teach skills like empathy and failure in schools and companies worldwide, and we train and support schools and companies to use empathy as the core of their business and the way that they work with each other and they work with their students and with their customers. We've had the pleasure of being able to travel the world now, so we are in 45 countries, 1,000 schools, and over 100 companies.
Great, thanks. Michelle.
Hi, I also echo the sentiments. Thank you for putting this all together. I've known Vicki for a few years now and been blessed to be part of the network and watch it evolve, and it's really, truly amazing what she's creating. I have a high-performance women's undergarment line, so it's called Nudy, Patooty. We're currently rebranding, but basically we make undershirts that you wear under your clothes to make you feel more confident, so it prevents any perspiration, deodorant stains from damaging your clothes, and at the end of the day you can just throw it in the washing machine and hang your clothes back up in the closet, so it also extends the life of your clothing and reduces clothing waste.
And Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I actually banded
Can you
together-
speak up a little into your
Sure,
mics?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jessica. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Eve Medical. I actually banded together with 2 other entrepreneurs to become one activator to help support other companies, and so that's something that you can do also if you don't have $1,000 to pitch in yourself. So I run a company called Eve Medical. We're a women's health company, and our aim is to make screening easier and more accessible for women. So we just launched a product called Eve Kit in March, which is an at-home screening system for HPV, which is the virus that causes cervical cancer, and we will be coming out with another product for chlamydia gonorrhea later this year. And really the challenge that we're trying to solve is that 1 in 3 women don't screen on a regular basis for cervical cancer, and we just want to make that easier and more accessible so that we can get those numbers up.
Okay, so we need to lean in, I guess. Yeah. Not an endorsement. So, at all. Okay, so on the funding side, how many people here are dying to know about how to get their business funded? Oh yeah, okay, so there's a lot of interest in this issue. It's super interesting. So lots of interesting ways to do this. So I'm gonna start with Michelle. Can you tell us a little bit about how you had your idea, how did you get started with funding?
So I launched my business in 2013 via a crowdfunding campaign. So I think that we're really blessed, in today's day and age, where if you have an idea, you can really test that concept with your market with just a prototype. So when I launched my Indiegogo campaign, I hadn't started a production run. It was to raise funding for that first production run. So I was able to validate that there was actually a demand for this type of product. And then I was able to get that capital because, it's amazing. People really are willing to support when you share your idea and your why, and you really give that story and what you're trying to create, and then you're basically pre-selling if you have a product. So you can pre-sell that first production run and raise the funding. So that's how I got my initial capital to do my first production run. And then after that, do you want me to keep going? Sure. Okay. I've subsequently, so I'm bootstrapped as well beyond that. So I've gained access to different federal and provincial grants, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later. So it's really, I think important to become part of networks like this and ask questions because they are really difficult to figure out where they are and what they do. And I've, learned about most of them through my networks and through advisors and mentors of mine. So a lot of that has been to help me hire employees, which is amazing. And then another big support for me is I actually moved all my manufacturing back onshore. And that enables me just to have better management over my cash flow because I have relationships with my suppliers now. So I have terms with all of them. So I, really can, when you're bootstrapped, you get really scrappy with your dollars. And so I'm able to, have terms so I can, again, ship product and then pay my suppliers. So it's kind of how I manage growth.
How many people here have tried crowdfunding? Just a couple, huh? How many people are interested in trying crowdfunding? Yeah, okay, cool. So we'll talk about that a bit more. Ilana, you had some funding from Futurepreneur. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and how it helped you?
Absolutely. So when I moved to Toronto, and within a few months, I was connecting with a lot of my customers. So initially it was schools. So I was going to every single education conference I could and using the few prototypes I had, leaving them on tables, and then seeing what happened and seeing who came up. I was then introduced to Futurepreneur through the Spin Master Innovation Fund, which is a $50,000 4-year loan, low-interest loan. And so Futurepreneur works with Spin Master Toys, which just so happened to also be a toy company. And it's across Canada. Anyone can apply. You need a business model, and then you're able to pitch for that. We ended up receiving that in the first few months. So we went from not having any customers to getting the access to the Futurepreneur funding, as well school board. One of the school boards that I got introduced to because of those education conferences found me on Twitter, which is an amazing community if anyone here is trying to get into education, and found a talk that I'd given on the toy. I've given a TEDx talk on the development of the toy, and then they've put in their first order. So I've always had a model of pay and wait. So I got them to put in their order and told them I would be ready in about 6 months, and then use the Futurepreneur funding to pay for that production run and for us to hire our first teacher. The thing that happens not just with that funding, we also got mentorship, and as part of this mentorship program that really helped us think through a lot of the early stage challenges.
Jessica, you've had angel funding. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for people in the audience?
Sure. So my company, because it's a medical device company, we required quite a bit of capital up front before we could actually get our product out the door. And so we actually started, before we went into our angel funding, we started with a lot of grants as well, so a lot of R&D grants, especially in the life science space, clean tech space, sort of some of the more capital-intensive industries. There are grants and programs available for R&D and development of products. IRAP was one of our first grants. OCE, the Ontario Centres of Excellence, supported us in the early days as well. And that enabled us to get our product to a point where it was functional, and we had a line of sight to how we were going to to commercialize it and actually turn it into a business. And at that point, that is when we went and started looking for angel financing. So at that point, we had a functional prototype. We had some clinical data, not our own clinical data, but clinical data sort of demonstrating the concept would work. And we took that out. We also had some advisors that we had brought on board from various they were basically industry advisors and sort of HPV experts who would be able to connect us into government screening organizations in other countries. And that was sort of our pathway to commercialization, which we pitched. And it was kind of a long haul to go around to all of the angel groups. So if anyone's not familiar with what an angel is, it's a high net worth individual who's been successful themselves and are looking to invest in small companies. There are angel groups all around Ontario, and these are sort of groups of these high net worth individuals that together will hear companies pitch and decide if they want to invest. So there's multiple of them. We went around to many of them to pitch, talk about our business, and eventually we were able to put together the funding that we required to get us to the next stage.
So actually, I want to go back to you for a sec, Jess, because one of the other ways to get support early with your business now are incubators and accelerators. Have people heard of incubators and accelerators in the city? Some? Yeah, okay. So you were part of an incubator at OCAD, is that correct?
So I actually preceded the incubator at OCAD. We weren't part of it, but we were part of other programs. So sort of going back to the funding thing, the other thing that you should look into is there are a lot of business competitions that sort of give out smaller pots of money, maybe 5,000, 10,000. The bigger ones might go up to 50,000. There's really no downside to applying to those at the early stages. It takes time, it takes effort, but I always think about it as every time you have to present something, it means that you're honing your business story, and you get to practice speaking to people that you're trying to convince of your business. And so it's always good practice, and there's no real downside. In terms of the incubators and the accelerators, one of our biggest challenges early on is that as new grads, we had no network. So even though I myself wanted to go out and find some investors, I didn't know those people. And so in addition to the programming that we received through the incubators, teaching us how to put together a business plan, how to do sort of marketing stuff, it also enabled us to tap into a network of people that were interested in investing in early stage companies. And in particular, with some incubators that were very healthcare oriented, they were interested in healthcare. So that was a way that we were able to expand the base that we had in terms of the people we could go to ask for capital.
Okay, I'm going to kind of open it up now to anyone to jump in, but knowing how tough it is to get started, we've talked about crowdfunding, we've talked a little bit about incubators, we've talked about angel funding. Futurepreneur, if you're between 18 and 39, is another opportunity. What are your go-to tips, Ilana, if you're getting started and you have limited time and limited network?
I definitely like to promote, my background is design, so instead of, there's product prototyping, but I think there's also word prototyping, so just finding those communities. I needed validation that this business even made sense. We have a wooden toy that teaches empathy that you play blindfolded. It was a bit of a leap. And so before necessarily pitching to, let's say, Futurepreneur, what made that really successful is because I had been speaking to every single educator that would listen to me. I would ask them what they thought. I would give them a prototype and say, okay, what do you think for a few days? But even just saying that out loud, I want to change education with toys, and just seeing what people's responses were. When we first applied for Futurepreneur for the funding, that was when it was still just kind of an idea, a website, and I had like a $1,200 artist grant for the prototyping. By the time we made it to the final round, I had just secured our first sale. And so I think as much as it's about pitching, and I think that's so important in getting those really great advisors. There's a lot that we learned looking back now where I could have taken more advantage of various supports in terms of advisors. I've always leaned on our community, because at the end of the day, if we know that they want what we're creating, it's just a matter of finding out what we need to get them to that level to say yes. We had a few customers. We had an HR manager in Montreal who met me because I was trying to sell the toy to a facilitator, and we ran a workshop, and I ended up, the room was full of HR managers, and I didn't even know those were my customers. And at the end of the workshop, I said, any questions? And they said, can we buy this? And I went, oh, okay. Let me get back to you on that. So I was like, okay, it cost me like $200 to make this. It's $400. And then two of them said, oh, okay, thank you. And one of them said, oh, it's $400, I'll just get two. And I went, oh, okay, can you pay and wait a year? And he did. And so not all these stories can be replicated, but I do think just putting yourself out there and seeing, like, how do I build those customers? Can I sell them something right away or get that promise? Combined with the idea of pitching, that's definitely what's helped us grow.
I think one of the summary lines of that would be one of the favorite things I was told by a mentor a long time ago, which is, if you want money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, ask for money. So over to you, Michelle.
Yeah, actually, to follow up on that, I haven't taken any outside funding yet either, but I definitely am conscious about actively building relationships with investors and venture capitalists, and because I don't know, it's not in my 5-year plan right now, but you never know, where life is going to take you. And I think having, as Vicki said, building those networks where you're asking for advice and you're speaking along the way with very smart people who have seen a lot of businesses succeed and fail. And so even though you're not, asking them for money, you're going to get a lot of valuable advice on how to build your business in a different perspective. But to go back to my top tips, if you are looking to build a product, I definitely would explore crowdfunding. I think that, as I said before, we're so blessed that we have access to this. You can have proof of concept, which is going to be huge once you are bringing your product to market. I also received Futurepreneur money, and when I applied for that money, I had a successful crowdfunding campaign, so I had solid evidence of proof of concept and a demand and a valid market out there. So that really strengthens your story. And also when I go to buyers, the same thing to retail buyers, you can prove, especially because similarly, what I've created, it doesn't exist out there. When I talk to retailers, they don't have any floor space for it. They don't, they've never had anyone ask for it because this product doesn't exist. So you need to prove that there actually is a demand out there, and crowdfunding really enables you to do that. Now, that being said, I think, when I ran my crowdfunding campaign, nobody even knew what it was. They were like, what are you doing? But now, I think we're lucky people, everyone knows who it is, but you definitely need a really solid strategy, and we can talk about this later if you want, because it's very loud out there, and I think same with e-commerce. Again, we're so lucky that we have tools like Shopify where you can start a website for like $100, but just because you start a website and put it online doesn't mean you're gonna find customers. That's now, whereas the barrier used to be actually building that website, now the barrier is how do you actually get it in front of your customer, and the same is with your crowdfunding campaign. But definitely explore it, and we can chat about how to build a successful campaign later. And then my third piece of advice would be really leverage these incubator and accelerator programs. I didn't when I first started, and I joined the DMZ, which is Ryerson has, it's called the Digital Media Zone, and they have all these different zone learning. So I originally was part of the Fashion Zone, and now we're part of Joe Fresh has partnered with them, and they have the Joe Fresh Center for Fashion Innovation, and they have a really strong network of mentors and advisors, and just the community in itself. So I've learned so much from other not only fashion, but just e-commerce entrepreneurs that I've met through those networks that have really helped me grow my businesses, whether it's different apps or tools or funding opportunities. And then also to access a lot of funding out there, you need to be part of one of these innovation centers. So whether it's Mars or Ryerson, I guess that's the kind of the government's way of vetting and ensuring that you have adequate mentor support to use the funds. So definitely look into those, and they have a zone, especially at Ryerson, they have a zone for everything now. So find your zone. And
so Jess, do you want to do your final before we go to Q&A thoughts for others in the crowd?
Sure. I guess just to jump off the idea of community, I think it is absolutely important to build sort of a base of people that are going to support you. Often one of the questions I get is, how did you find your advisors? And my answer is, I essentially looked up people that I thought could help me, stalked them a little bit, and then approached them and just asked for help. And I think that you'll find that people are very, very willing to support you, and if they aren't the right people to help you because they don't have the time or whatever the reason is, if they like you, they might suggest somebody else or try to link you with other people that could help you. And so again, I don't think that there's any real downside to asking for help, along with what Vicki is saying. The other thing I would say is, if you are going to go down the angel investor route or investment route instead of bootstrapping, you do need to think about your investors and who you're bringing on board, because they're going to be with you for the long haul, and you want more than just money. Ideally, you want somebody who is going to be able to support you within your industry, to help connect you to people, and so they automatically become part of your community. And that's something you should really think about when you go down the road, is how you feel about this investor, and that you feel good about working together. I think sort of a little bit differently than the other two companies. One of the biggest challenges we had at the beginning is that I was in the healthcare industry with really no background experience at all in healthcare. And there were a lot of challenges that we had to overcome, like we had to put together an entire quality system. We'd never done that before. Usually you spend tens of thousands of dollars with consultants to put that together. We had to run clinical trials, which we didn't know how to do. And so we kind of became the master at doing first drafts of anything. So we would find lawyers to sort of help us. We would do a first draft of our patent, give it to them, pay them minimal amounts of money to give us advice and what we could change, but we would do the bulk of the work ourselves. And we built a lot that way, and I think it's a very good strategy. And the benefit is that you also learn a ton, so that you can either do it again or help other people later on.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is great feedback. So, are there any questions out there? Is someone roving with a mic to help with that? Does anyone have any questions?
Are there many options for service-based businesses as well that you can?
I think I would look to if you're looking to hire, there are a lot of funding opportunities to hire, especially youths between the age of 20 and 29, which I don't know, without knowing exactly what your service-based business is. But yeah, I agree. It is, and again, a lot of the funding is within like tech or like apps, etc. But yeah, I would look to the employment grants, because there is a fair amount of money within each industry, and again, to hire the 20 to 29-year-old tends to be the range. Just trying to support getting young workers into the workforce. So most incubators or accelerators, they vary, but I guess I could speak to the DMZ, and Valerie, feel free to correct me, can answer any other questions. But so the DMZ, they have different, it's called zone learning. They have different zones for specific business areas. So there's like a fashion zone, digital media, there's a legal zone, social innovation zone, and part of it is a bit as a co-working space. So you can get, I think each zone might be different in terms of how much time you get desk space, and then after that you can continue to rent the co-working space. But what I think is the best part about it is the network, as I mentioned before, especially because Ryerson has created such a strong network. They have access to a lot of really impressive mentors and advisors who you can have hours with, and some of them are like legal advisors, so you can sit down with a lawyer for an hour, or accounting. Different funding groups will also come in and speak, and then within each zone they'll have people that are specific to that industry as well. So you don't necessarily either have to work in the space, you can graduate out of it and still be part of that network and community as well. And then there are incubators out there as well that you apply for, and they're more of a term. So like, for example, the Joe Fresh Center, it's an 18-month term where you apply. It's a little bit more competitive. They take 3 companies each cohort from across the country, and there is a financial aspect to it. So at the end of it, based on your performance, you're eligible for up to $50,000 of funding. And then other incubators that are out there are similar. Sometimes you then go on to pitch VCs and you get some sort of an equity investment into your business. So they all vary. Does that answer your question?
If a different version of, so it's not necessarily an incubator, but I actually decided to start my business in Toronto. A big part of it was because of a community called the Center for Social Innovation. So they don't take any equity. They are essentially a not-for-profit that is a co-working space. They have 3 locations here, 1 in New York, and you can pay for a membership, which gives you access to that community. You still need to apply. The prerequisite is that you're starting a business that has a social purpose. And what you end up getting is this incredible community. I've had a lot of initial advisors and mentors just from within that community. There's other people that are doing fulfillment now. We're doing like a lunch tomorrow where we're going to talk about different like applications and different things that we can use to streamline it. In our first year, I also applied for the shorthand is CSI. I applied for their Youth Agents of Change program, which gave me free rent for a year. So while there's opportunities to get funding to help with employment, there's opportunities to get funding for prototyping. Just covering costs like rent and getting that community was a huge boost for us. And we just worked and slept and lived there, so we really got to know everybody in that building. The Center for Social Innovation. You're welcome.
Okay, well, I'd like to, we're going to have to move on to the next one. I know there's lots of questions, but you'll be able to reach out to each of these amazing ladies afterwards on social media or grab them in the hallway. And we have a number of breaks. Thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for them?